Good evening. Dunedin's historic railway station may become the striking venue for the South's 1990 celebrations and a permanent home for the Otago Early Settlers Museum. Today, officials from both organisations met to talk over the prospect. Kathy Graham reports.
The grandeur of the Victorian basalt buildings impressed visitors to the city for more than 80 years, and today's prospective tenants were no exception. The tiled interior of the foyer stood the test of time, but it's no longer a bustling transit area. With only 2 passenger trains a day, it's all but surplus to railway requirements.
It's gorgeous.
If everything goes to plan, 1990s Chief Executive Don Hutchins will turn it into a temporary home for displays associated with the celebrations.
I can't think of a better place for us to be situated in Dunedin than this one. It's quite beautiful. I've never seen it before. It came as a shock to me. It's a bit like the Palace of Versailles, isn't it, really?
And if everyone agrees, the 1990s displays will be inherited by the early settlers, who will then move here, vacating their current premises, also railway-owned, just down the road. The whole idea is still under discussion, but with the celebrations not far off, decisions will have to be made quickly. Then, of course, there's the money.
People talk in large round figures like $750,000 to $1.5 million. It's just a bit difficult to know that.
Plans so far include utilising the old parcels area for the bulk of the early settlers displays, glazing the veranda to create more space, and bringing Josephine along and hopefully gearing her up to operate trips to Port Chalmers.
As work on the Mammoth Clyde project nears completion, Electricorp hasn't ruled out the possibility of more dams on both the upper and lower Balclutha. But as Alan Brady reports, it's unlikely any construction will take place this century.
The corporation says there's no prospect of the Clyde Dam workforce moving on to Luggett as was originally intended when the giant project was first started. But with most of the approvals already in place, dams at Luggett are definite prospects for the future. And Production Development Manager Brian Cox says controversial lower Balclutha dams are still being investigated, as are sites on the lower Waitaki River. As New Zealand enters the 21st century, he says decisions will have to be made about new generating possibilities. The South Island's hydro options will be balanced against fuel costs for thermal stations and environmental considerations. And because Electricorp no longer has a monopoly on electricity generation, it'll want to position itself so that it can exploit hydro potential on the Balclutha and Waitaki rivers when the need arises.
South Otago, the latest of the Southern Hospital boards to feel the pain of government-imposed funding cuts. But South Otago is also a board that's fighting for its very life. Michael Lynch reports.
Balclutha may have one of the nicer hospital views in New Zealand, but its days as an independent hospital board look numbered. Board Chairman Ray Kirk has been working for years holding off the octopus of the surrounding Otago Health Board.
You're probably any days away from that eventuality.
What's your worry with being absorbed in the Otago Board?
Well, the one that concerns us most is the fact that locally we would have no decision-making powers or no autonomy, and this is a point that we believe that it was very important.
In the meantime, the board's making its own economies. The underused children's ward will be condensed and shifted. The geriatric homes in Milton and Awaka will be offered for private or welfare management. Staffing will be tightened and contracting investigated for services such as laundry. Yet staff point proudly the board's one of the very few still in credit.
Events that have unfolded and are still unfolding by the day are proving that just how right that we've been. Unfortunately, the decision of the Minister could well make that final blow.
The Otago Board wouldn't guarantee South Otago an independent voice, so Ray Kirk kept his board apart. The decision now may be forced on him.
The Otago Early Settlers Museum has come up with a novel way to raise funds to set up its own lecture room. It's all to do with a very exclusive form of fashion, as Sally Pears discovered at the museum last night.
It had all the ingredients of a fashion show. A compere, an audience, a catwalk and the models. But they weren't your average type of tall, thin model, more your role model. The fashions on parade were robes of office, some decades old. They came from different walks of life, clerical, civic, academic, and judicial. The background of each garment was explained to the audience along with some rather amusing anecdotes. Cliff Skeggs, Mayor of Dunedin, let us in on a little secret. He'd only worn his hat once before. All the robes had a story behind them, but the most spectacular were often the most colourful. And it's not often you get a look under the robes of a Catholic bishop. The deacon and subdeacon helped display the complicated process of robing and disrobing. We even got a sneak look at the disrobing of a certain mayor.
Dunedin's Fortune Theatre is making a song and dance about a special production starting a 4-week season tonight. It's the story of a class of nervous novice tap dancers called Stepping Out by Richard Harris. And the reason for the song and dance is that it's the theatre's 15th birthday, as Lee Davies reports.
Stepping Out is a long way from the Fortune's first play, Blue Comedy, and the theatre's a long way from the Athenaeum, where that first production was staged in 1974. And for almost every one of the intervening 15 years, there have been dire predictions the theatre wouldn't last.
I think perhaps we think that all the time, except that it's going to survive, and the only reason it wouldn't perhaps would be if there was a substantial cut in arts funding from the government. And all the theatres are in the same boat, really. We need the funding and, of course, the support from the Dunedin people. But we've got that. We could do with more, of course, but we've got a small population and they're really great.
Dunedin has supported a wide variety of works from Shakespeare to comedy hits. Almost 200 productions altogether. 29 have been New Zealand premieres, 19 world premieres. But there's been more to keeping the theatre going than producing plays.
When you think about the hard work that went in at the beginning, you'll find there's a hard core of people in Dunedin, like myself, who've been associated with it right from the beginning, who were absolutely determined that there was going to be a workplace for people in the theatre in Dunedin. And I think that's why when things have happened that have made it look as though the Fortune wouldn't survive, you've found a hard core of people coming out of the woodwork to fight like mad to keep it going. And I think it will always be like that. I hope so, because I think it's important that people should be able to earn their living in the theatre.
Predictions for the future of the Fortune are confident. It seems secure in the old Methodist church on the corner of Stewart Street, and Campbell Thomas says it's there to stay.
I'm very positive about the future, and seeing this is the 15th anniversary, we're looking to the next 15 years. I think all theatres have their ups and downs in their infancy, but we're past that now. We're one of the 5 major theatres in New Zealand. I think we compare very favourably with the others.
The 15th anniversary production is a suitably cheerful one to celebrate the Fortune's continued existence. And the storyline of a group of novices transformed into a triumphant tap dance troupe seems appropriate.
Have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday. Good night.